Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast presented by Shadified Salon and Barbershop here in Edmonton. They got three locations. And so tell them that the 2 Months Podcast sent you. They got a location on the north end, they got one downtown, and they got one in Ellerslie. So go check them out. They are the official barber of the Edmonton Oilers. And I'm your host, Joshua Marshall. And we have a nice guest sitting here waiting for us. This is his third visit with us. We have Ray Croteau back with us. Ray, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me back on.
No worries, no worries. How was the day? How was the day of grinding out there and the fun weather that we're almost going to be getting here? How's that going for you?
Yeah, it was good. I left home a couple days ago and we're, +5, no snow, kind of a nice late fall day, and then drove up to Rainbow Lake for some work here and woke up to 8 inches of snow and -20. So it was like I was teleported to another planet, but uh,
Yeah,
uh, winter's here, so it is what it is. I just carry on with life.
yeah. The next 6 to 7 months or maybe 8 months is what it is. But yeah, we'll see how it goes for sure. And hear you on that. The work front, we're working outside too out in Fort Saskatchewan, so it's a bit of a we haven't gotten all the snow yet, but I know it's coming. So I was working with this older guy and today, and he was just saying we're projected to get a lot of snow this winter than compared to last. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know who makes
Yeah,
it.
I think we need it.
Yeah,
So
probably do for the farmers out there and the guys with the crops and the hardworking people in that industry, as you well know, that is something near and dear to your heart. But um, let's
excuse me.
talk some. We're going to talk some flames and some mental health stuff with you, Ray. And we got a cool event coming up, so we'll kind of translate or move into that event that's coming up in November here. But and get your thoughts on the mental health side of things and where things are at and where education can be go. But we're about to see Michael Backlund play his 1,000th game in the NHL tonight, all with the Calgary Flames. Pretty special to see that, and he is the captain, and he's a friend of our podcast. I don't know in your travels. I know you got to meet some players through meeting with Glenn Cross and other guys. I don't know if Bax is one of the guys you got to meet yet, but talk about his career to date and what he's been able to do maybe when we first came in, we didn't think he was going to get to 1,000 games, but he sure enough showed to be one heck of a hockey player and a person off the ice too.
Yeah, absolutely. He's dedicated, right? And yeah, I've being friends with Curtis Glencross and that, I watched him basically get into the league and get started, and then becoming a Flames fan, after that. And um, I think he's a true blue collar Flame right from the ground up. And he definitely, the first 3 4 years it was kind of shaky back and forth, and then he kind of seemed to find his groove. And then the last 3 years has been, he's the backbone, I guess, of the team. And you look at the people that he's gotten to play with since he's been at the Flames, and there's some generational players that are pretty impressive to be in beside, right? So solid dude. Never got to meet him, but it's easy to build around him, and hopefully he can finish his career off as a Flame.
Yeah, we'll have to get you introduced to him this year. We'll figure something like that out. I know you'll be busy this winter, but when you got some off time and I'll be around, we'll maybe have to line that up because this is a guy that you'll definitely get along with. He's a salt of the earth person as you would see on TV and the rapport he has, and I think he works with I think it's like six charities. Ray, it's quite the remarkable how he kind of balances that with two kids and being a
Yeah.
captain of the Flames and stuff like that. So it is pretty interesting. It was the first time in all many years knowing him. He actually had to send me a text and tell me to ease off on like requests that I might have for him just because it's overwhelming. So it's like so yeah, you kind of I think that it's amazing what these guys take on a daily basis, especially being the captain of a Canadian franchise too. But they're rolling right now. I know they kind of lost three in a row and hasn't been what we wanted to see. And their last game was probably the worst outing that they probably had all year. We'll see how they bounce back tonight, but they're getting some guys back in. Tyson Berry's going to go back in the lineup. Sam Honzik's going to get back in the lineup. So they're getting some depth there. They sent Klapka down to the minors. They sent Corrado down to the minors. So I wonder where you're kind of at on the depth that they have, but where the season is for now. Like, may or are you surprised, or did you kind of see this coming with this kind of workmanship kind of team that bet against us? We're going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, I'm a huge underdog fan, and I love when GMs shake up teams and you know basically restart and put a brand on it, right? So honestly, I didn't see the start coming, but I think coming out of training camp when the foundation is there and the consistency from just getting through training camp was set up, it obviously paid off, and then they just kind of run into a couple real good teams there that they're just good hockey teams, right? So they're still missing a couple key guys, or else the key guys that they got in
Yeah,
the last couple of years aren't the guy I want to say. Like they're not the McDavid or maybe they've had a big year, and Huberto's kind of looked like a little bit of a bounce back and looks good, but I don't think he's the guy. Like maybe caught him on a good year and in Florida, and then they brought him over thinking like he found his way. And um, but foundation wise and as a group, the leadership I think is there. And trading away a really good goalie is tough, but I admire the cap space, and I admire the picks and the process of legitimately trying to rebuild, but yet be competitive like they are. So it's I think it's going to be a good story.
yeah. It definitely can move into one of the greatest stories that we could see this season if they kind of keep this up. Like, I know at some point here they've been rotating the goaltenders back and forth. One starts, the other starts. So that's going to somewhat change. I think next month that they're going to start giving one of the guys some runway here to see what he can do with it, and so I'll kind of free things up and open things up, and be better for the organization to kind of
Yeah,
see
and I
what they
think
have.
it's super natural to take that approach when you
Yep,
don't have the bona fide starter. So you
correct.
just roll with the heat, and when the guys need a break, you switch, and then that second guy is usually on fire, ready to go, and eager to get in and prove himself. So I actually don't mind the combination, and I'm a Wolf fan, even though he's real small, he's super talented, and then Vladar, he's a big dude, and he should be better than what he is, and should be that guy that could fill the crease full time. But um, I think just let it play out and let him battle. I like the battle and the competition internally, right?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is that competition, and I think the internal competition makes it better for the organization, and the players going forward. It makes the product on the ice really good too. So, um, what's your thoughts on the coaching staff here? Ryan Huska, they had just added Brad Larson. He was with the Blue Jackets for a few years, as a head coach, and he's the associate coach. So they've added some new coaches in. Mark Savard left last year; he's with the Leafs, but I'm pretty impressed by what they're able to do with what they have. I like the system, I like the culture that they're doing with everything they have, and it seems like it's a very fair opportunity that you're going to call young guys up and you're going to play them if they're good, and if they're not, they're going to have to sit and learn and then try to get back in the lineup when they can. But where are you at with the leeway, the coaching staff, and kind of what they've been able to do?
I don't really know much about either of them.
Yeah,
I think Savard leaving was kind of a good thing. He maybe tried to complicate things and change the game a little bit, and
yeah,
just from what I was hearing last year. And but Huska, like, you're learning the person and the personality and his approach to things just through his interviews and how he talks. I think he's a guy that's going to stick around with the Flames for years. Um, the smarts and the ability to deal with the new generation of player and how to whip and spur, but not actually have to whip and spur on the guys and get that heart and that play out of them. So and as for the assistant coach, I'm not super familiar. So
yeah.
um,
No worries. Yeah, I kind of wonder, bringing a guy like that in. I think in a way it kind of benefits, someone that's been a head coach before and coming in and then learning, to his ego checks his ego at the door, comes in as an associate coach, but can still offer that experience that he had from another organization. I think that's somewhat beneficial in some aspects, and They got I think it's Lambert on the back end for running the D coach. They got Kale McLean up front running the forward in the power play. So it's a good mixture, it seems like. And like you said, like Conroy's been around this organization for a long time. He played for the organization. He's been an assistant general manager for 9 years. Now he's 2 years in his second year into being a general manager. I think what he's done is good. And yeah, he didn't inherit. He inherited Huberto. He was a part of the regime that brought him over, but he wasn't the. It's usually the GM that makes that decision. It's not going to be an assistant GM. So, they got to kind of work with it. But you're right. It's maybe it's not kind of what it's all been there with Huberto, and he has bounced back. So that's somewhat of a good thing. Nazem Kadri, it's another player I want to get your thoughts on, and the growth and the maturity and the leadership that he's been able to bring compared to what he was in the past. You haven't seen those outspurts. He hasn't been spending a long time, but that maturity's really come a long way. And the fact that day one he got there, he squashed all trade rumors. He wants to be a part of this organization. He wants to be there to turn around. What's your thoughts on Nazem Kadri?
I've been a fan of Kadri, since he was in Toronto, and that's a tough environment. And then I think when he bounced around and got to Colorado, and really got to see a huge club have some success. Coming to Calgary is super excited, and I think he's a huge leader. And he at his age he can grind still, right, and he can battle and fight and get the scrum goals and get down deep and do what it's got to take. It he's a -8 right now, which I don't think really reflects his performance, but I he plays so many different roles that it's tough to manage that number two at times, right? So I'm a big fan of Kadri.
Yeah. What about Mackenzie Weegar? Another good personality, good character kind of guy. What's your thoughts on him and what he's been able to bring to this team?
I just see confidence in that guy, and like you watch any interview or how he moves on the ice and the flow, and same thing. He's like Nazem. He wants to be there. They're both pretty good contracts. Out of all the contracts that Conroy inherited, they're guys that you can ride out and keep there till the end, right? So,
Yeah.
he's a foundation guy for your back, and you can build around that guy, and I like him a lot.
Nice. Yeah. And what's your thoughts on this Rasmus stare, the Ras stare when Rasmus Anderson
Uh,
scores?
Hey, you know what? He's leading the team in points, so just keep rolling. And
Yeah, you
I
can't change
think,
it up now, right?
yeah, and it's engaging, right? So the fan or whoever he's doing it to, or that section, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? They're eating it up, right? So um, the guy's skilled
Oh
and
yeah.
has a little bit of term yet with the Flames, and is worth a lot. So if they decide that, hey, we're going to move you or you're going to stick around, whichever way, I think he's worth it. And they have an enormous amount of picks and all kinds of cap space already. So to move a guy like that, and add to the pool, I'm not sure if it's worth it because you got so many picks unless you're getting some extreme talent back, some
Yeah.
youth or whatever. But
I, I
yeah, cool dude. I like it. I like the
yeah.
attitude.
I like it too, man. It's like you kind of as a fan, like you go to the games to watch these players. Now when you go watch a Flames game, you got something to watch for. Like, is he going to score tonight? And if he's going to score, am I going to be that fan in that first few rows that he stares down? Like, you're kind of looking for that engagement,
Yeah.
right? So as long as it doesn't get too personal, but it seems like all the ones they've had have
Uh,
gone pretty good, and the fans are laughing and all that. So I think it's all in good fun. It's all how to grow the game, man. I think it's just another
yeah, and
way.
the last one I seen, it was a big old girl in the front lane,
Yeah.
row there, and she was chuckling, and he just kept a straight face and give it to her. So I thought it was funnier than heck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she had a good laugh of it too. So yeah, is there anything else on this team that you're intrigued on and kind of where things are going to go in the future here? I know you talked like there just about
Uh,
young players, but is there anything else that kind of piques your interest in what this group can do?
yeah, just like Coronado going up and down, up and down. He looks, like he's ready at times, and then he's not, or they're just trying to balance the lineup, I guess. And I just feel bad for some of them young guys, that they think they got it this year and then they get pushed down. So you just try and keep those guys rolling, and you hope Sarangovic gets rolling and gets back to where he was last year. I think it's just a matter of time, but
Yeah.
And I'm kind of always a long shot guy too with Tyson Berry, and like we've all seen him in his prime and when he was scoring and rolling and having fun, and you just want to see guys get back to that, right? And
Yeah.
it's really tough to do because some of those seasons are so significant that even if he was a 15, 20 goal scorer this year, I think that'd be huge for us, for the Flames. And I just once I'm a fan, I'm hard to get rid of, right, of a player. So I don't ever like seeing people go out, or to basically go backwards, right? So
Yeah.
you always kind of root for them.
Yeah. It was kind of tough the other day going in the locker room, and then like he played a good game, had 2 assists, and like there's still, this was during training camp. You're still on the unknown. Like, am I going to get signed here? Am I not going to get signed? Like, it's weighing on him. Like, he doesn't really have a lot of other deals. But it was just good that he took it like a champ, and then he got the deal that he got. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's a cheap buy for a couple of years if you can keep them around and
yep,
build some young guys, and you know the cap
yeah,
space is there, so
yeah.
you can only have so much youth in, right?
Correct. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move over to some mental health stuff here. We have an event coming up November 25th. We're going to do some mental health stuff with some younger kids in the community here, and just trying to help them, educate them, give them some tools if they're going through some things. But I just want to know, like, not to, it's up to you to how open you want to get. I know last time we talked about some mental health stuff too, and we connected it a lot, but through text. But and for you, like, just like like I struggle with it every day. It's hard. There's days I don't even want to get out of bed, but and I know like Kelly Rudy's very a big advocate for it, and I know Kelly Rudy, and have watched him for so long on Hockey Night in Canada, and he always says they always say the stat is 1 in 5 Canadians, but he argues and says it's 5 in 5 Canadians that fight it. It's just what degree do they have that mental health? And for me, it's like sometimes getting out of bed, and you get in a tough space, but every day is trying to get better. Doing things like this is fine. Getting on a pod, having a chat, getting out there. I know for you, probably being around the horses, riding the horses, all that stuff is probably big. But what do you lean on and try to make sure that the day goes good when you feel like maybe the day's going bad? What kind of brings you into back into the fight in some which way?
Yeah, you touched on it, and like these kind of things, and building a community around you to support it. And it, something I read the other day was like making things that you hate, doing good at things that you hate doing. And there's certain things at work that, everybody annoys everybody, but you get down in the trench like today and we're exposing a pipeline and you're down there mucking with the boys, right? So you're just, shoveling, trying to do a safe job. And just, I've really challenged myself with those things in the last year, and, just push myself and to sweat it out. And, I've learned, like many, that some exercise and some fitness and really goes a long ways, and having that community to talk to, and basically not just getting stuck in your own head, because the thoughts can swirl, and you dig yourself a hole, and it could be somebody else's perspective or the smallest thing that helps you, resonates with you, or brings you back to the top where you can breathe again, right? So um you know everybody deals with mental health. I don't care who you are. You could be the richest guy in the world, or the poorest, or the most successful, or and this summer competing, I had the best year to date, and there was a few kind of screw ups along the way that I'd always take back, like any team, or or player, or people that are trying to perform. But it wore on me this summer, because we led the season for I want to say 70% of the time, and we battled, and you're just trying to get to the end and win it, and we ended up finishing third out of 36 guys, and you I was disappointed, but you got to take the little the little wins, and show that you had your best year to date, and there's a lot of things to learn from it and how to improve. And but at the end of the year, I was exhausted mentally, and give it all I had, and then I think that helps me build for next year to you know increase the fuel tank, and know what I'm up against, and know when I can use a little extra or exert a little extra here and there, right? So, and it's every day. You never quit learning, you never quit adapting, and you never quit adding to your team when it comes to people to talk to and on a professional side. I last year in November I started talking to Brett Gardner, and he was basically my sports psychiatrist,
Yeah.
type of guy. And mental health was kind of one of the major things we focused on, and how to deal with certain people and characters, and just keeping that straight line and staying above water. And he's a rodeo announcer, and has a outstanding um, resume to him. And we'd be at certain rodeos or certain places and just stop for 10 minutes for a coffee and bounce things off each other, and just kind of recharge you, right? So when you're thinking you're down and out, all it takes is a little conversation from somebody, or to meet somebody new, or to do something like this, and it changes your life, right?
Yeah, just gives you a different perspective. And it's kind of cool because like, and I think, and I know you'd be proud of this, but you did retire and you came back, and look at what you've done since you've come back. And you're holding that name and that wagon with the utmost respect. It carries a lot of respect. It carries a lot of character and dignity, and and the compassion to it, and the passion and the poise that it has. And I know, yes, you, for 70% of the year you were leading, and it wasn't somewhat the outcome you want, but in some much way it was, because next year is going to be even better for you, because it's another year of experience for the horses that you're going to have. But not only for you growing, but do you ever look back in a way of, like, especially lately, that hey, I retired and I came back, and I was one of the biggest guys out here now this year. And and you've had such a big name, and the history with this sport in your family is very huge too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like, people don't really know much about me, or how I was in my first kick at the Cap, but I pretty much reinvented myself coming back, and changed my mindset, changed my relationship, changed, everything under the sun,
Yeah.
except for how I worked with the horses and how I raced, right? And um, but then, if you don't have the whole package, it's hard to win, right? So, you got to have the horses, you got to have the sponsors and the support behind you, and you got to have the family. And if you're not, if your wife and you aren't out there both because you want to be there, it's super tough to succeed, right? And it doesn't matter if it's just in your day to day life. Oops, sorry.
Oh, no worries.
And your, just work life, and normal day to day life. You both got to go to war with each other, right? And for each other. So
Yeah.
that was the biggest thing that I noticed. And then the team that kind of surrounded us on our comeback, and the people that were, helping and devoted to us, on the ground, doing the day to day chores, or the, getting down the road, and, the outriders, and the whole package. That's my last year. I think I was sitting 14th or 15th, and it was a grind and a battle, and I didn't have the bullpen to really be much better. But everything that I worked on and changed over the 6 years that I was off got me to where I am today, and I wouldn't really change a thing. And we just got to keep grinding, because we're going to win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. And that itch is there, right? And it's like you say, it's like you're raring to go. It's like you just can't wait for this winter to pass by to get back out there again, and compete. There's nothing more than that passion for competing. So when that horn goes, like, what's the feelings that go through your, like, everything that goes through you, like when that goes, and that you
well, it's a complete, like, addiction. Like,
yeah.
it's a fix, right? So it's funny, because I didn't realize, like, how big of an adrenaline rush, and a cure to things it is. But we had a week off between our Rocky Mountain House and Pinoca finals, so we went and sat and kind of hung out, and anyways, just got kind of lazy for a week, and got the horses rested up and got ready. And then we got into the finals, and had a couple big runs the first couple nights there, And like I come back to the barns after the first night and I was like, wow, I needed that. Like I feel like I just went through the ultimate cleanse and my body feels like I'm 18 years old again, right? So um you're addicted to that and the competition and the mindset behind the game and you're the coach, the trainer, the whatever, your list goes on as a wagon driver, but without the team you're really nothing, right? So it's something that you just kind of fuels your life, and it burns you out, and there's a thing called adrenal fatigue, and a lot of pro athletes and sports people go through it because everything they're trying to do they perform when their adrenaline's pumping, right? And you watch hockey players and people that are fans are mad because this player's not producing or this guy's not putting out and not achieving what they think is is par, right? And I've experienced it, and I can see it on the other side, right? And my perspective of the guys that are having a hard time or need a break or need some rest, and it depletes you, right? When you live off that adrenaline for 6 months straight, and but it's part of the mindset and training your your brain to control your body and your brain to push you and your brain to keep you going,
Yeah.
because your body can be worn out, depleted, or broken, and as long as your mind says you can do it, right? So I learned that a lot this summer because you'd have a bunch of good races and then you'd have a bad one and it'd beat you up and you'd be hard on yourself, and then the season's dragging on and you start to see horses getting tired and you can see it in their eyes, and you want a little bit more out of them and you want them to keep going, and you just got to have that lineup to be able to shuffle and keep some fresh blood in there. So yeah, the things I learned this last year, and I've been doing this for just about 25 years, and every year you're like, wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't see that before, and now I can see it, right? So it's just about a community and a team, and just keep battling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And it helps with the mental health, right? It balances things out in a way, wouldn't it? I would say at times.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's there is a probably a good month and a half after every season where you're hungover, you're tired, because you just asked for everything
How
to
do you,
perform at peak, for 6 months, right? So um we I'm just kind of starting to come out of it now and start to I don't actually normally start thinking about next year this early. It's always like come January 1st, then I'll kind of flip the switch and
yeah.
get rolling. But I'm already kind of thinking about horses, and we took some time and went down to Oklahoma and picked up 6 new ones, and there's three like legitimate monsters in there. So we just gotta teach them their new job and fit them in, and then just I need some big defensemen, big wheelers to kind of haul us through here. So we got everything else. We're just looking for two or three key ones, and I think we're gonna make a run for it here again.
Nice. And do you do a lot of that somewhat training at the farm at home during off days in the wintertime too? Are you still out there with them? Like how does that go throughout the wintertime? Obviously maintaining them, making sure that they're eating healthy and all that stuff. But is there a little practice runs back at the farm?
Best quality hay and oats, and a lot of rest in the off season. You buy some new ones in the fall.
Yeah.
A lot of these horses have been at a racetrack for the last 4 or 5 years and went from racetrack to racetrack, had a little bit of time off here and there. So mentally, they're probably tired and unsure of themselves right now. Give them 2, 3 months off, all of a sudden they're rejuvenated and they're ready to go again, right? And they start to buck and play and show their emotion and their excitement and their happiness for where they are. Last year we were fortunate with pretty easy winter. So Christmas Day I was like hooking horses, and we had to wait to open presents because I was out doing chores and messing with my horses, and
Yeah.
my wife shook her head at me, but um, anyway, yeah, you take advantage of the days where there's some good weather, but typically we don't get too much done until the spring, because I don't like pushing new horses too much when I first get them, because if they're tired, sore, or just not aren't happy being a horse at the time when we first get them, I want them to learn their new job when they're feeling good, and when they're, rested and they're excited, so that they adapt to it, right? It's, I think if a horse is tired or sore or just kind of grumpy, um, when you try to teach them something new, they're just kind of not into it, right? So
Yeah.
I try to give them that time till spring. But last year we did really see the benefit of the little bit of time, the 2 or 3, 4 drives we got into horses at Christmas, when it come to springtime, because they took off they took off right where we left off, and it saved us some time in the spring. And it's kind of impressive actually, because you teach them just a little bit, enough for them to know, and you let it kind of plant the seed and let it grow till 3 months later, and then all of a sudden, they're pretty sharp and they get it now, right? So it worked out good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there anything else you want to plug before we sign out here, Ray? Is there anything you want to kind of touch on?
Uh, I think just like always, right? The mental health thing, and the way the economy is and the way inflation is, and you know, it's not easy for anybody. And I don't care what suit somebody puts on or hat they wear, they're working at it too, right? So
Yeah.
you need to reach out. You need to message somebody, or reach out to me or message me or whatever on Facebook. Feel free, right? We can chat,
Yeah.
get a feel for what's going on, or just talk about the weather, whatever. You know what I mean? So there's always somebody out there willing to lend an ear.
Okay. Appreciate it, and very well said. And yeah, we'll keep in touch. Hopefully, you can make that event work wise. If you can't, all good. But it would definitely be an honor to have you out and be a part of something pretty special. So, but we'll keep in touch on how things go. Got 5 weeks away before we're at that point. But again, appreciate the time you took with us again here to have a good conversation, and we're looking forward to having you on again and catching up, down the road here.
Right on. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. We'd like to plug a few sponsors of the 2 Months Podcast. We like to sponsor Manscaped. Use promo code 2MonthsPod. That's promo code 2MonthsPod to get 20% off your order at manscaped.com. They have a lot of new products in stock right now. So from the beard trimmers to the 4.0, many different things they have, and it's a brand new stock. Some of their even colors have changed. Some of the stuff that they had were in a darker color and navy color. Now they got some stuff in the color of white. So check them out at manscaped.com. Use the promo code 2MonthsPod. It's 2MonthsPod. Also, we'd like to plug our sponsor, SeatGeek. That's at SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code 2MonthsPod to get $20 off your purchase. That's the promo code 2MonthsPod to get $20 off your purchase at checkout. So yeah, if you guys are going to, any NHL games, NFL games, NBA games, concerts, wrestling shows, UFC events, anything that you can get tickets at, use that promo code 2MonthsPod and get $20 off your purchase. That would be greatly appreciated. So we really appreciate SeatGeek for sticking with us. And also Sheena Boychuk Realty. Sheena Boychuk Realty by Design, your design approach to real estate. Check Sheena Boychuk out at sheenaboychuk.com and tell her the 2 Months Podcast sent you. If you guys are looking at selling your house or anything, you guys are looking at buying a property, buying a house, check her out. If you're looking at getting into the rental game and you want to buy some property and you want to rent some places, check Sheena out at sheenaboychuk.com. That's Realty by Design, your design approach to real estate. And yeah, like we said at the top, we have Shadified sponsoring us. So huge appreciation to Shadi and his team there. They've joined us since day one of this podcast. Is episode 280, and they've been a part of us since episode 1. So greatly appreciate them. And if you guys are watching us on YouTube, hit that like button at the bottom and subscribe. That'd be awesome. And we have a guest in the waiting. We have David Staples from the Cult of Hockey. This is the first time we've had David on our podcast. We're looking forward to that interview. We're going to get to that right now. Mets fans, our next guest is joining us for the first time on the 2 Months Podcast. He is from the Cult of Hockey. You find him on Oilers Now too. He does a weekly hit with Bob Stauffer on Wednesdays. We have David Staples. David, how's it going?
Fantastic.
That's perfect. That's perfect. How are things going? I know it's in Oilerland, it's pretty crazy right now. I'm seeing a lot of messages, and especially after the Leafs just made a trade to get a friend of ours, actually Matt Benning, to the Toronto Maple Leafs. A lot of Oiler fans are kind of wondering.
Oh, what did they give up? I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, yeah. So Timothy Liljegren went the
Okay.
other way, and the Leafs got the Oilers' third round pick, and they got another pick too. So the Leafs got two picks and Matt Benning. So Liljegren is in year one of 2 year of a 2 year contract at 3 million, and Matt is in year three of a 4 year deal with 1.25 left in his contract. So a bit of a right shot defenseman for a right shot defenseman trade, and then just a couple of draft picks intermingled into that. I guess since we're talking about that, I'm a Leaf fan, so I like it, and I know Matt Benning, so I even like it even more. But what do you think of that trade and a 25-year-old defenseman versus a 30-year-old defenseman?
Well, Matt Benning had a huge group of fans, like fanatic. Like every Oilers player has like f factions of fans who love them, and then other factions who hate them. Matt Benning, what he had a lot of fans who really liked him. I think most fans kind of liked him. Like in the end, I thought, oh, he's an okay player. He's a third pairing NHL defenseman. Like my first thought is, how much better is Matt Benning than Troy Stetcher? Um, he's big. He's a bit bigger.
Yeah,
Maybe he can be a bit more physical. Stetcher might be. Stetcher's. They're both smart players, very smart players. Stetcher might be a little bit more mobile. Um, so they're very, very similar players in some ways. Like maybe Benning's a little bit better than Troy Stetcher. So like uh, Toronto gave up a player that is somewhat highly regarded in Liljegren. So I'm not, and again, I don't know. I haven't watched Benning or Liljegren enough to really give an informed opinion on their value as players right now. Like at the Cult of Hockey, we really study the Oilers. Like we go over the video every game. We look at all the grade A shots 5, 10, 20 times. We know the Oilers. We are that's our wheelhouse
head and
commenting
butter.
on Oilers players. But man, we don't do that work on other teams.
Yeah,
And I don't believe that the current statistics that are out there, whatever statistics are publicly available, are that effective in describing the games and the true value of hockey players. So whatever statistics people are using for Benning and Liljegren, and I know people really believe in these statistics.
yeah,
I'm skeptical in terms of having a credible opinion on whether they should actually be traded for or not. Like you can get so far with statistical analysis, but only so far.
correct.
And to really have a strong opinion, you need to watch those players intently, take careful notes for 20, 30 games. And if you're not doing that, I don't put any weight in your opinion on the player.
Yeah. No, and that's very fair. Like I'm a Leaf fan by heart, so that's if you didn't know that, I guess you know it now. But so Stoffer always gives me a hard time whenever he comes on our pod and stuff like that, and we always shoot the text about stuff that's going on, and Toronto's good, and if the Oilers aren't doing good, we go back and forth. But
How did you become a Leaf fan?
so when I was younger, there's the Big Brothers Big Sisters program that is pretty much everywhere. So my big brother that was in the program, he used to be a former scout and worked for the Leafs back in the day, lived in Toronto. So he was just a big Leaf fan. So I think it was just around that time, and he was done that he moved over here to Edmonton and kind of just did a different career path. So he kind of did that later, earlier on in his life, and yeah, he was a Leaf fan, and then I went to go play ball hockey with him at the YMCA when it used to be downtown. I don't know if it's still there, but so Matthew Schneider and Doug Gilmore came in there, and that was the first two players I ever met. And a couple of years ago, I got to interview Doug Gilmore on this podcast, so it was kind of cool to. And he ended up being my favorite. He's still my favorite player, yeah, to date. I still admire Doug Gilmore. He was really good.
First player I ever met was Jim Harrison.
Okay,
It was the Devon Arena, and he was coming in. I don't know, it must have been some function in like 72, 73. So I'm 61, about to be 62. And this is the World Hockey Association. And there was this Oiler coming across the parking lot, Jim Harrison. And I was a kid, and I hadn't ever been around people who drank very much.
okay,
And I'm not saying anything, but I think he was hungover
Yeah.
because it was. That's what I remember looking at him thinking, yeah, like you don't, and I didn't know what I was looking at. Now that might not be fair to Jim Harrison. And the other thing is, it might not have been Jim Harrison because my friend who was with me says it was Doug Barry.
Okay.
So I think I met Jim Harrison, but it could have been Doug Barry, and he may have been hungover or not. I can't tell you for sure.
Can't confirm or deny. So that's
In
hilarious.
those days, I wouldn't be surprised if they were hungover. I mean, it was pretty. Everybody in Alberta every second day was hungover. So
Got that right. Doesn't matter what profession you were in.
that's right.
You were
Party
hungover.
hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. That was the Alberta logo at that time.
Yeah, you got that right. All right, let's move over to here and now. The most obviously pressing news in Oiler land and the NHL circuit too is the injury that Connor McDavid sustained from a trip going into the boards against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think it was Zach Werenski would claim as the person that tripped him. The obviously diagnosis, and the Oilers have tweeted out today it's a 2 to 3 week injury. How do you think the Oilers are going to do without McDavid during this stretch of maybe 6 games to 13 games, David?
If I think they can win as many as they lose, which I think would be fairly successful. And they they've got a problem with their second pairing defense. Darnell Nurse and whoever he's partnered with have been. Nurse has been struggling immensely for about last half of last season in the playoffs and the start of this year again. He's been struggling, and so they got to. But I think their top pairing is excellent, Bouchard and Ekholm, and I think their third pairing, Kulak and Emerson, are actually really really solid as well. So I'm not worried. But they got a problem there. Their goaltending has been iffy, but their forward lines, there's a lot of talent there, and there's a lot of I think players who can crank it up to another level when they need to, and I think that need to crank it up is just hit maximum. Their top players out. You know, Leon Draisaitl won the MVP award based on the strength of his play in the 6 games McDavid was out in 2019-20. And when all of a sudden Leon came alive, and Bruce McCurdy tells me he was the 3 games the Oilers actually won outright in that stretch of 6 games. He was the first star. Leon Draisaitl has a chance to win another MVP award here. If he can lead, let's say the Oilers to a 600 record or a 650 record, 650 winning percentage or 600 winning percentage right now, he could put himself because the MVP award in many ways is awarded and kind of not on performance but on narrative, like who's got the best story. So if Leon can put himself near the top of the scoring leaders this year, and he takes it, if he can haul the Oilers single-handedly on his back, essentially be the top player, maybe one of the top players in the league in the next month when McDavid's out and coming back, that'll be huge for him. And I think he's capable of doing it. He's in the prime of his career. He just turned 29. He's an outstanding offensive player. He can, and when he puts his mind to it, he's an outstanding two-way player. So it's a big moment for him, and I think he can come through. It's a big moment for Nugent Hopkins and Nurse, who have both been playing poorly this year. And if they can figure out how to play solid hockey right now, I really haven't put my mind to what Nugent Hopkins has to do. But if Nurse can I think, focus on defensive hockey, forget all this, forget the Bobby Orr stuff. Just move the puck, defend, and not try to do too much. I think the Oilers can. Those two players are so key too because they're kind of swing players. They can be good or bad, so they could both crank it up. And Skinner's been good. I think Arvidsson's a good player. The third line, as we saw in the playoffs, they can crank it up. So I'm not that worried. And I like them bringing in the younger guys, younger Noah Philp and Kajula. Ryan and Perry were starting to struggle.
Yeah. Can Draisaitl do this? Well, obviously, we know what Hyman's going through right now. He's been in a cold spell here, but can Draisaitl do this performance and say it's 13 games? And can he put up, if McDavid, I don't think McDavid will miss 13 games. I think the date we all look at is November 16th against Toronto. In Toronto is the return that Connor has. That's the vision date.
You're just Toronto centric.
Exactly.
Josh, you just got Toronto on the brain, and you can't get out of that. You can't get out of that bubble, and it's all about Toronto. I can see that now already. Like
the
This
light
is really
bulb.
getting tedious, Josh. All this Toronto, Toronto, Toronto.
Toronto stuff. I love it. It's awesome. Giving it to me, it's hilarious. And it's worth noting. It's worth doing. But
Hey, I love the Leafs in the 70s, man. I was a Roger Nielsen. Like you're half or like one third my age or whatever, but
I'm 40, so
Ro- oh, you're 40. Okay.
I haven't
Well, all
seen
right.
too much success. But
He's he you know what the Leafs in the 70s were a fantastic team under Roger Nielsen for a couple of years with Sittler, McDonald and Errol Thompson, Boreas Salming, Ian Turnbull. It was a fun team to watch. And Paul Matier and net, like there's never been a more high risk goalie than Mike Paul Matier.
yeah,
So I really liked the Leafs back then as well.
yeah, I was wish I could say that to myself, but I loved obviously the Gary Roberts and Matt Sundin and Tomey and Tucker era and Caberlet and
Yeah, they had some good teams.
yeah, so that was kind of like my
When there
heyday.
was
Some good
unlimited
times.
spending in the NHL, they took advantage of it.
Exactly. But anyways, to answer to get a question to answer to you, can Draisaitl do this with Potkozen on his line? Do you think Vili Potskoven is the player that can be the left winger, or do you think there's some interchangeables? Do you think maybe a Savoy? I know he shoots right, but where are you at with the lineup as it is today, and what it is going to be tomorrow when they play against Nashville?
Savoy, I think he's kind of like he's like in the Nugent Hopkins, Jeff Skinner mode. I think he's a little like this team doesn't need that player. This team needs speed and physicality, physical violence. It needs players who will go in hard, forecheck, separate other players from the puck, and it needs it on every line. Like Hyman's bringing it somewhat on the top line. He's not scoring much, but I have no worries about Zach Hyman. His process has been good, so to speak. He's really getting in a lot of great shots. His defense is still strong. He's been a strong two-way player. He just hasn't been able to score, so I'm not worried about that. But this Oilers team needs speed and hitting. Vasily Podkolzin provides that, and I've actually been pretty impressed with him. I think he's doing a really good job, and he earned that promotion before McDavid got hurt to the second. He earned that promotion to Draisaitl and Arvidsson. It works. You don't need everybody to carry the puck. Leon Draisaitl monopolizes the puck. He needs the puck. He should have the puck. Arvidsson is a good player then for him to work with the puck. For someone else like to have that role of back checking hard, forechecking hard, going to the net hard. It can make a lot of sense when you have two players. Now, Arvidsson and Draisaitl haven't scored a lot yet. That's the problem. Once they start to score, it'll that line could even make more sense. So I'm not saying it's a long. I can't tell. We've only seen 10 games of Podkolzin,
Yeah.
so I can't tell if he's a long-term solution there. But I think he's part of the. He's either on the second, third, or fourth line on this team, and he'll probably move up and down because he seems like he's figured out how to play in the NHL. He's got to skate and he's got to hit, and he's doing both. And he can also make the odd play. I've liked him.
No, he is a good player. I liked him in Vancouver. I didn't think he got a fair shot. I think obviously, but some other guys in their lineup in Vancouver kind of surpassed him. And that does happen. It's unfortunate, but it is part of the process and that aspect. Let's go back to the defense. I heard you with Stoffer today when you did your hit with him and talking about Darnell Nurse, and maybe just being a shutdown defenseman, and maybe Paul Coffey might not be the coach that is giving him that opportunity, but there is still a defensive coach on that bench still in Stewart. But I know obviously, Coffey will run the defense, but what kind of conversations do you need to have with Nurse going forward here? Because he's going to be pretty pivotal too. I know McDavid's a forward, but they need Nurse to get better. If he's not getting better, this stretch without McDavid could really sink their season if he doesn't perform, because they need him to get going there.
It's so when Paul Coffey took over, the defense as a group improved significantly. Like there was a measurable, statistically significant improvement in the grade A shots they were helping to create and the grade A shots they were denying. Like this group got better. Evan Bouchard and Ekholm took off as players. Cody Ceci trended up a little bit. Philip Broberg took off in the playoffs to the extent that another team really wanted him badly. DeHarnay was a little bit better. Kulak was better. So every other player either was the same, maybe a little bit better, or really a lot better. Kulak, Bouchard, and Ekholm being in that camp. The only player who got worse under Paul Coffey was Darnell Nurse, and he entered into the biggest tailspin of his career, which he's not yet out of. So it's interesting. What I sense from Coffey, like from what he says in his public statements, is he really stresses making a play with the puck, building up the confidence of his players, pushing them to be confident with the puck, pushing them to be playmakers, not to give it away. And I think that might be the wrong, it seems to be the wrong message for Nurse, and I'm not exactly sure why. He has a tendency he's always had a tendency to carry the puck too much instead of pass the puck enough. And earlier in his career, we saw him repeatedly rush into the offensive zone and either take a weak shot on net or drive the puck into the corner and lose it in the corner. It was like repeated plays. He just seems to lack that offensive ability in the last 30 feet around the net to make a really good play around the net. He just lacks that amount of finesse. He's never going to have it. So I think that the new contract got him even more focused though on points, even more focused on being that player who rushes, makes plays with the puck. Um, and in the defensive end, he's also very puck focused. Like what I'm noting, like what characterizes his slump more than anything is defensive problems. And these defensive problems come because he's watching the puck in the corner. Someone slips in behind him into the slot, and he's so intent on watching the puck. The pass comes out, beats him on the pass, goes to the guy, the danger man, as I call this kind of like the player sneaking into the play, and that player scores. It happens. It's happened repeatedly, and more so with Paul Coffey as head coach, where he's so puck focused, and so I think intent perhaps. And this is all just guessing. I don't know what's going on in his mind. I'm not around the team. I'm just a fan who does video analysis.
Yeah.
But this is what I see: someone who's puck watching and needs to focus on quick puck movement. Yeah, make some good passes. I'm not saying don't make good passes because he can make a great stretch pass, Darnell Nurse, but don't focus on the puck in the defensive zone. Focus on covering the player you're supposed to be covering, taking his body, taking the man, looking for the danger man, thinking where the danger is going to come from on a play. It's not the guy with the puck in the corner. And it might not even be the guy with the puck rushing the net. It's the guy he's going to pass to. And that's where Nurse is really weak in covering off that play. He's got to get better at it. And there's no excuse for it at this point. Like honestly, 30-year-old veteran, he's got to cover that man and start making that play.
Yeah, I think like a player, and I want to get your thoughts on why that is. But I'm watching. Like I do a lot of work. Like we have a media pass. I'll transition. I always talk about the Leafs, but we have a media pass for the Calgary Flames, our podcast. So we do quite a bit of work with them. And if you actually look at the numbers that Braden Pakal has with the Flames, his numbers it's a landslide when he's on the ice. Like the Flames are not even close to suppressing any shots. Like the ice is tilted in the offensive zone favor. He's never really in his own. And tonight he got moved up into a top four pairing. They are losing 3-1 now, but I wonder if there's a player like that you guys have come across besides would it be Pakal for Nurse. And Pakal's a right shot defenseman, but I don't know, is there someone out there that you think can play with him in terms of helping him get better? Or is this just basically on Nurse to get better himself and he can't really depend on whatever partner he has? I know it's a revolving door, but
Well, Jason Strudwick is a really astute watcher of the NHL game, and his take is that Nurse needs to play with a puck mover. And I think Strudwick's. I'm guessing what he's thinking, but I think he's getting at the same thing that I'm getting at. If you put the pressure on Darnell Nurse to be the puck mover, if you want him to be the primary puck mover, you are not using his strengths, and in fact, you're distracting him from what his real strengths are. His strength has got to be battling in one-on-one battles for the puck, winning those battles, controlling the puck, moving the puck. And if he was to play with a really good puck moving defenseman, I think he did best in the playoffs when he was with Philip Broberg, who's a good puck moving defenseman. I think he would be really good with Brett Kulak.
yeah.
I think on the Oilers, um, and they were going to ask the rookie Broberg to play on his offside. They can certainly ask one of these two veterans for the team. You are Kulak, Nurse. You're the 3-4 defenseman on this team. We need you on the second pairing. we're going to have to put you together. One of you is going to have to commit to play that other side and see if you can figure it out. I think it should be Nurse. Kulak's excelling on the left side. Nurse isn't excelling on the left side. So have Darnell make the switch. Maybe the change will work for him. Have those two players work together because Kulak, I mean, he's not a classic offensive player. He's a skater, and but he can really move the puck with his skating and with his passing. I think he's someone Nurse could rely on as a partner to move the puck consistently well, and maybe a little it probably as well as he does. So that to me is the move to make to try and to go for that for an extended period of time to see if they can make it work. It really helps the Oilers then at the trade deadline because then they don't have to trade if they can get a top four together that's decent. They don't have to trade for a top four demon. It's going to be so expensive in assets. Excuse me, at the trade deadline. You don't want to have to do that. So they have a possible solution on their team, Josh. They should try it. They should go for it.
I agree because then you could easily you don't have to give that third pairing so much minutes. Like I'm not saying you don't give them any minutes at all, but they could still be manageable in 11 minute. If say if it's Dermott and Emberson or Dermott and uh
Stetcher, yeah.
sure kind of situation, you interchange all those three guys.
Or Gleason, who I liked.
Yeah, Gleason's another one too. So they do have options. I know there's all this narrative, they're bare, they don't have options. I think this organization does. I know the farm has been hit with some injuries and guys coming up, but I still think I'd be surprised if they don't if they have a bad run here without McDavid. It would be very very surprising. This team is still talented enough and like you said, like Hyman's numbers are really good. They're just not going in. It's not that he's not getting looks. He's getting the looks. They're just not going in. Once one goes in, it's going to be a floodgate, I think, for him. That was and go back to the Toronto thing. That is one guy I was upset that got away. But
Hyman?
yeah, Hyman. But he's just such a good player and such a good person off the ice. Like everything you hear and everything you see, it's just that's been one of the free agent best signings that in recent history. And I know Stauffer always says it's Chara one, Hyman two for the best free agent signing.
Yeah.
So,
What I was reading in Toronto was people were pretty, well, they kind of had their heads around Hyman leaving. Like they were like, they just thought, he's too much money for that amount of time. They really didn't value him. And like there wasn't a huge amount of upset from what I could see, at least from the people writing about the team. Maybe there was more in the fan base, but
yeah,
they got the mix of that Toronto team wrong when they signed Tavares. I think they
right.
they
They didn't
they
need they
they
didn't need him at that time, right?
they didn't need him, and they needed to keep Zach Hyman. They needed to keep Nazem Kadri. Like they had some rough and tough players that they needed to keep around. I think, and I think that was the mistake that was made. Even it was very like obviously so tempting to bring in Tavares because he is a really good hockey player, but he's starting to get down, like risking getting on the downward curve of the age curve. And anyway, I think that's what happened there. Although I don't follow the team closely enough to be
Yeah.
certain.
Yeah, just a quick rip on that. I don't think most we do have a big following of Oilers fans. Don't have much of a Leaf fan following, but just a quick one. Like his playoff numbers, matched kind of what he maybe was somewhat lacking in the regular season, Tavares.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, you're 100% right. That's not what they needed. I listen to Overdrive with Hayes and Noodles and the O-Dog, and obviously I follow what Jonas Siegel writes. They were kind of all in the same thing too. Like they didn't need him. They already had the offense. And then you already had, a great two-way player in Kadri. It was just he needed him to grow up a little bit and mature, and which he has. He won a cup, and he's kind of changed his career around in that aspect. But it was a tough one to let go for sure. And you could have kept Hyman. I know the biggest knock was every playoff year Hyman only had one goal in every 7-game series the Leafs had. But
yeah.
so there was like, wow, that offensive upside wasn't really there, is what they thought. But obviously it is there because he has proven himself, and he'll probably possibly be on Team Canada come February here at the
I
40.
saw you left him off, Josh, and I saw you get some
Yeah, I
heck for
did.
that.
I did. I did. I got ripped apart. I used my bias hat I put a friend of the pod and Tyler Toffoli on there, but I'm gonna keep pushing Tyler Toffoli just because he's having a good year to start. But I get it.
Hyman will be on that team. Hyman will
Probably,
be
yeah.
on.
It would be tough to say he's
Yeah.
not right. So
As sure as Chris Kunitz was on the team in Vancouver, Hyman will be on this team.
yeah, exactly. Just like I guess Marchand back in the day too. But when Marchand got to Team Canada, it kind of changed his career around.
Oh,
And
he was a good player. He
yeah,
deserved to be there, I think.
100%. But yeah, so okay, let's go. Let's finish up with the goaltender here. The goaltender situation. Where are you at with Pickard and Skinner? I know what you said earlier with Stoffer, but are you concerned? I know Stoffer was on with Mike Fuda's show earlier, and he's concerned about Skinner's his goalie hand. Are you concerned in that? Is there any kind of
His
status that
glove hand.
glove hand?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Are you kind of
Uh,
what are you guys coming from the cult of hockey with that and deep dive into your kind of analytics?
so what I don't know about goaltending is everything. So this is just a fan's my perspective, and we do watch the grade A shots closely. And so what I've noticed with Stuart Skinner is when I'll just repeat what I said on Stoffer's show. When there's structure on the Oilers defense, when the team is playing well and they're having a solid defensively structured game, Stuart Skinner's really good because he's a great first shot goalie. That first shot, especially often through traffic, um, he blocks those. He's solid at it, and when he can zone in and start stopping all of those. And then if the rebound if the team's in position and playing solid defense, the defenseman will handle the rebounds, the forwards will handle the rebounds. When the team's in a bit more chaotic as they are now, like with Nurse and some of the forwards not playing that well on defense, and some of the defensemen still struggling a little bit. When there's more chaos on the ice, Skinner really struggles. He struggles with cross seam passes. He struggles with rebounds and just general chaos. He's not very good with it at all, and that's his weakness. Pretty big weakness, I guess. And Pickard, I think, is much better at that. He's such a smart goalie. He reads the play. He's more able to anticipate what's going to happen. So when things go haywire, it's not as big a surprise for him. It seems like he's one step ahead of the play a little bit. His reading of the game is better than Stuart Skinner's reading of the game. You know, I Skinner, he was about to be run out of town halfway through the playoffs last year, and then he came on and he played really well. You know, so he's earned. I think he's earned some patience from me and from other Oilers fans that we know that he's a hot and a cold goalie, and we know that it seems to be related in some level to how the teams itself is playing. Let's let both of those things sort themselves out. And maybe we'll be singing Stuart Skinner's praises again in a week or 2 weeks or a month. Highly likely that that's the case because that's what's happened in the past.
Yeah, for sure. Do your numbers match what Stephen Valiquette's numbers are in saying that Skinner is the worst goaltender off the rush? He gives up the most amount of goals. Is anything
It
kind of
doesn't surprise me when I don't know what Valiquette's numbers are. I really his work is outstanding. He's looking at how goals are scored, and that's our fundamental focus is how are goals scored for and against. And so when you said that, it was like, oh, geez, that's true.
yeah,
That he does get a lot. So that's when we get the seam passes on a 2-on-1,
correct.
cross ice passes on a 3-on-1. Stuart Skinner is weak at those kind of passes. Like he seems awkward coming across the net. He often falls forward, kind of on his face, which looks really bad. We can remember, I think, an overtime goal, maybe where he was falling forward, or a late goal in a game where he was falling forward and it went in. So it does seem to be, he's not the most athletic goalie. That's not his game. He can make those saves, obviously, but that's not his strength. He really needs the team. When the team is playing well, though, and defensively in front of him, he doesn't tend to let them down. He tends to uh, get solid. As the team gets solid, he gets more solid. Then the team gets more solid. Then he gets more solid. There seems to be an upward cycle and a downward cycle, and it's not just involving Skinner. It's involving the whole structure of the team's defense.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got one more. No, I think you're very well pointed there. One more. I think it's a fan. You probably had chats with him, Carmen Gill, KJ.
Yeah,
He messaged. I just want to kind of get a question that he asked me and get you to answer it. Is we're seeing some other trades. Obviously, Utah made a trade. The Leafs made a trade. Sharks made a trade for defensemen. At what point do you think Bowman makes a trade? And you think why hasn't Bowman made a trade yet, in your opinion? And when does he make a trade for a defenseman at some
they
point?
don't have a lot to give up in a trade,
And
is
I
the
agree with
truth.
that. Yeah.
You see, this is like everyone's, oh, the Oilers are going to trade for a top four defenseman. Like, what are they going to give up?
Right.
Like their first round pick, they've already given up their first round pick for this draft. So it will be the next draft.
Yeah.
Is that what's going to happen? Maybe. Okay, so now they have a second and a third, which they, in the terrible Broberg Holloway fiasco, they got a second and a third out of it. They have those two assets they can trade. Those are good assets. They don't have a lot of cap space. They don't have a lot to give up. I mean, they could trade Matthew Savoy. That if if they're looking at top prospects on the farm team, they could trade Sam Riley. The guy they just took first overall. They don't have a lot to move in a trade, and most of their star big players are on no trade, no movement clauses. Like they can't move them out. There's very few players on the roster they can trade. It will be very difficult for the Oilers
Make a move.
to bring in a top four defenseman this year, I think. And they might be able to figure out a way to do it, but good luck with that. So I'm not, everyone's confident they're going to make a trade at the deadline for a big player. Like they couldn't get a right shot defenseman last year. That was their big goal at the deadline. They couldn't do it. There wasn't many available.
Mhm.
Now that's why I think it's so imperative. Go with Kulak and Nurse. See if you can solve this internally. And then if you can, then you're in a much better position because you can either trade, you could get a third pairing defenseman quite easily, I think. And you could get maybe a fourth line hitter energy player quite easily. But those are going to be the trades, and they're I don't getting a second pairing defenseman. I don't see the assets. Maybe I'm incorrect, but I don't see it.
And I'm surprised that they wouldn't go with it longer because I think they started the Penguins game with that. I think they went Ekholm
Kulak
Bouchard
Nurse.
and they went Kulak Nurse for the second shift, and then they went to it a little bit later on in the game. But it kind of set the tone for the game in that aspect, like because they went Ekholm Bouchard and then Kulak Nurse, and they went back to Ekholm Bouchard, and then they went Nurse and Stetcher. So going into a rotation, so the fourth shift of the game, Nurse ended up getting back out there with Stetcher. But I was surprised that they stayed. And there were parts of the game, especially some offensive zone faceoffs. They had them out there together. So I was surprised at some point they didn't continue that the rest of this
Yeah.
after that game. I know they won 4-0, and just like Jason Strudwick said, maybe the Oilers alumni team could have beat the Penguins team that night too. So it was kind of an interesting comment. But yeah, anything else you want to plug, David? I don't know if there's anything else we can go into, but you guys have a podcast tomorrow night to debrief the game, and
Yeah.
um,
After every game, we do the Cult of Hockey podcast, and
you
we've
guys
been
have
doing it since about 2016 now. So
been a
a lot
while.
of podcasts.
So that is with you and Bruce McCurdy. Does Kurt Levins help you guys out too? Is he a part of your guys' team
Kurt
as well? Yeah,
He comes on the podcast now and then, but his main job is he writes a Nine Things column on Sunday at the Cult of Hockey, which is online, and it's super popular because Kurt has good sources and he's got a really good hockey mind. So
he is really good. I know Stauffer talks him up very highly. So all right, David. Well, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy this stretch. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. I'll be looking forward to kind of hearing your guys' thoughts and see if it's a big win in Nashville. And all the best to you. And thanks for jumping on our pod. It's we really appreciate it here.
my pleasure, Josh.
Perfect. Take care.